I want you to picture like a police lineup.
Okay.
We are looking for the greatest plague facing modern men today. So the usual suspects are all standing there against the wall, right?
Right.
You've got addiction. You've got economic collapse. You've got political polarization, violence.
They all look pretty guilty.
Exactly. They look very guilty. But according to the research we're diving into today, the real culprit, the one that's actually pulling the strings in the background, isn't even in the lineup.
No, it's not, because it's the one nobody really sees. It's too quiet. I mean, it doesn't make the evening news, and it doesn't usually cause immediate visible chaos.
Right. Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Today we are unpacking a stack of resources centered around Stephen Mansfield's book, Manly Men, along with a collection of writings on this concept called the Covenant of Brotherhood.
Yes.
And what these sources identify as the absolute greatest plague facing us today is not a virus, it's not a vice, it is profound loneliness.
And we need to be really specific here about what loneliness actually means in this context.
Yeah, please.
Because it isn't just being physically alone in a room. You know, you can be lonely in a stadium full of people.
Oh, for sure. Or at a family reunion.
Exactly. The sources define it as a lack of knownness.
Knownness.
Yeah, a lack of deep sacrificial connection where someone else actually knows the real you.
Which is incredibly ironic, right? Because we are arguably the most hyper-connected civilization in human history.
Right.
I mean, I could FaceTime someone in Antarctica right now if I wanted to. I have thousands of friends on social media.
Sure, but the source material argues that digital connectivity is often just a wider net with smaller holes.
Okay, a wider net.
Yeah, it catches a lot of surface data.
Yeah.
Cat videos, political rants, vacation photos. But it doesn't hold anything heavy.
Like if you drop a bowling ball into that net.
It breaks. Exactly.
Oh.
So the mission of this deep dive is to figure out how the sources say we can weave a stronger net. We're going to move way past the modern idea of buddies or networking and unpack a very old, very heavy concept called covenant friendship.
Covenant. You know, that's one of those words that sounds like it belongs in an Indiana Jones movie.
It does sound ancient.
Yeah, it feels ancient.
Well, it is ancient.
Right.
And it's much, much stronger than a contract.
How so?
So a contract says, I will do this if you do that.
Right.
It protects your rights.
Nice.
A covenant says, I am giving you myself, regardless of what I get back. It actually surrenders your rights.
Man, that is a massive distinction. And to help us get our heads around this today, we have quite the cast of characters to get through.
We really do.
We've got Roman centurions inspecting armor, we've got a slave revolt led by Spartacus, and we have a deep psychological profile of two biblical warriors, David and Jonathan.
It's a total study in contrasts.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the lone wolf myth versus the reality of the manly man, according to the book. And we're going to see why the sources argue that true friendship is actually dangerous.
Dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not usually how I describe my brunch plans.
Absolutely dangerous.
Oh.
The premise is that if you are doing it right, it costs you something. It might even cost you everything. Real friendship isn't safe. It's sacrificial.
Okay, let's start with the foundation then. The source material spends a good chunk of time up front redefining masculinity and character. And I feel like masculinity is a pretty loaded word these days.
Oh, heavily loaded.
It often gets reduced to stereotypes, right? Trucks, beards, chopping wood.
Suppressing emotions.
Yes, suppressing emotions.
It does. And Mansfield, the author, cuts right through that cultural noise by going back to etymology. He actually starts with the word integrity.
Which ironically is a corporate buzzword now.
Right.
Like our company values integrity.
Yeah.
Which usually just means we try not to get sued.
Yeah, it has completely lost its teeth in modern usage. But the origin story of the word is visceral. It comes from the Latin word integer, meaning whole, complete, or sound.
Okay.
Mansfield describes this ritual from the Roman legions that paints just a vivid picture of this. Imagine a Roman commander inspecting his troops before a battle.
Okay, I'm visualizing the gladiator aesthetic. Rows of soldiers, shields, armor, dust in the air.
Exactly. So the commander walks the line. And he isn't just looking at the polish on the armor to see if it's shiny.
Right.
He stops in front of a soldier, and the soldier takes his fist and strikes his own breastplate hard.
Just punches his own chest.
Punches it right over the heart. And as he hits it, he shouts, "Integras!"
Integras. That's a power move.
It was a huge declaration. But here is the key detail. The commander was listening.
Listening to what?
The shout. Listening to the ring of the metal. If the armor was forged poorly, or if there was a hairline crack hidden under all that polish, the metal would just give this dull thud. It wouldn't sing.
Oh, wow. So integrity wasn't a moral abstraction to them. It was structural engineering.
Precisely. It meant you weren't cracked, you weren't divided, and the commander was also listening to the voice itself.
Ah.
Was it shaky? Was the soldier terrified? Or was the voice resonant and whole? Integrity in this context means your public exterior completely matches your private interior. There is no crack between what you say and who you are.
That is a wildly high bar.
Yeah.
I think most of us walk around with at least a few cracks we were trying to hide with polish.
Oh, definitely.
We present the shiny armor online, but if someone really hit the chest plate, it would just thud.
That is the human condition. But the argument here in the text is that you cannot build a covenant friendship, that heavy net we talked about earlier, if the strands are weak. You have to be a certain kind of person to be a friend.
Which brings us to the 4 maxims of masculinity that Mansfield lays out.
Yes, let's go through them.
Let's break these down because they are punchy, but they definitely need some context. The first one is, manly men do manly things. Now, forgive me, but that sounds like a tautology.
It does.
Like saying runners run or swimmers swim.
It sounds super simple, but Mansfield is actually making a sharp critique of modern passivity here. He argues we live in the age of intention.
Intention, yes.
Yeah, we judge ourselves by what we intended to do. Like, oh, I meant to call that friend, or I really care about that cause, or I was planning to fix the fence.
Right.
This maxim says no. Your identity is not your intention. Your identity is your action. Deeds over words. You are what you actually do.
So you can't just be a good friend in theory. You are only a good friend if you actually show up at the hospital or, help move the heavy couch.
Correct. Action validates identity. If you don't do the thing, you aren't the man.
Okay, got it.
The second maxim extends this idea. Manly men tend their fields.
I like this metaphor. It feels very agricultural. But I assume he doesn't mean we all need to start farming or buying tractors.
No, not literal fields. It's about your spheres of influence.
Okay.
Every person has a field. It might be your family, your department at work, your neighborhood, or honestly just your own physical health.
Sure.
And to tend means to take full ownership. It means if there are weeds in your field, you don't blame the weather or the government or your boss, you pull them.
That is the ultimate anti-victim mentality. Basically, no absentee landlords allowed.
Exactly. It is accepting that inside your boundaries, you are responsible for the growth.
Yeah.
If your friendships are withering, that is on you. You haven't watered the field, you haven't tended the soil.
Which leads right into the third maxim, and this is really the pivot point for a deep dive today.
Oh.
Manly men build manly men.
This is the direct, outright rejection of the lone wolf myth.
Yeah.
American culture, in particular, completely romanticizes the solitary hero, right? The cowboy riding off into the sunset alone, the rogue detective who doesn't play by the rules and needs no partners.
Right.
Mansfield argues that this is a complete lie.
It creates this toxic idea that needing people is a weakness, that if you were just strong enough, you'd be fine on your own.
Which is a recipe for total disaster. Even biologically speaking, wolves hunt in packs. A lone wolf is usually a dead wolf.
Wow.
You cannot see your own blind spots. You cannot watch your own back. The maxim argues that a man is not fully made until he is actively involved in the making of other men.
Mentorship.
Yes. Mentorship and community aren't just nice-to-haves. The source says they are absolutely essential for survival.
Okay. And the fourth one?
Manly men live to the glory of God. Now, regardless of a reader's personal theology, the psychological function here is what's critical.
How so?
It orients the life toward a higher purpose. It completely removes the ego from the center of the universe.
Which is completely necessary for friendship, right? Because if I am the center of the universe, you are just a supporting character in my movie.
Right.
I can't really sacrifice for you because I'm the star.
Exactly. If you serve something higher than yourself, you have the stability to serve others. But here's the rub, and the source material is very honest about this.
Yeah.
There is a massive gap between this manly man ideal, this person of action, responsibility, community, and purpose, and the reality most men actually live in today.
The loneliness gap.
Yes. Mansfield mentions his consulting work with high-level leaders. These are men who have successfully tended their fields professionally.
They're CEOs, politicians, wealthy guys.
Exactly. But when he sits down and asks them, who are your friends, the room usually just goes dead quiet.
Because they just have golf buddies. They have guys they talk sports with, colleagues.
They have what sociologists call associates. activity partners.
Right.
But Mansfield notes that if their world fell apart at 3:00 a.m., like if their marriage imploded or they got a terrible medical diagnosis, they often have literally no one to call who isn't a paid professional or an immediate family member.
There is a cartoon described in the notes that I thought nailed this perfectly. It is a mugger holding up a guy in an alley.
Yes, I love that illustration. The mugger points a gun and says, "Give me all your valuables."
And the victim starts panic stuffing his friends into the sack.
It's funny, but it is such a gut check. If someone demanded your most valuable assets, would you point to your bank account or would you point to your band of brothers?
For most modern men, the sack would be completely empty. They would have nothing to put in there.
And that brings us to our case study. Because to understand what a full sack looks like, what a covenant actually looks like, we have to look at a friendship that was forged in fire. We are going way back to the story of David and Jonathan.
Now, even if you aren't a religious scholar, this story is wild.
It really is.
It's basically Game of Thrones, but with more spears and less CGI.
That's a great way to put it. And to understand the weight of this friendship, we really have to understand the power dynamics at play. This wasn't two peers just hanging out.
No.
Jonathan was the crown prince. He was the son of King Saul. He was older, established, and a massive national hero.
The notes mention a specific battle that establishes Jonathan's bona fides. He wasn't some Talus brat living in luxury.
Far from it. There is this crazy scene where the Israelites are hiding in caves, completely terrified of the Philistine army. They're totally outgunned.
Yeah.
And Jonathan looks at his armor bearer and says, effectively, "Let's go take on that entire garrison by ourselves."
Just the two of them against a whole outpost.
Just two guys. And he says this incredible line. He says, "Nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few."
That is profound courage.
It really is. He literally climbs a cliff on his hands and knees, exposes himself to the enemy, and starts a fight that ends up saving the entire nation. So we have to establish this up front. Jonathan is the man.
Right.
He is the heir apparent. He is the warrior.
And then enter David, the shepherd kid.
It's a shepherd kid who shows up and does the exact same thing Jonathan did. He trusts God and takes down a giant Goliath.
Right.
And when Jonathan sees David kill Goliath, something clicks. The text says Jonathan's soul was knit to David's soul.
It's that moment of recognition. Like, oh, you are like me. You have the exact same fire.
It wasn't just shared hobbies. It was shared heart. But then comes the transaction, and I want us to really slow down and visualize this because this is where the covenant actually happens.
Okay.
This isn't just a high five between bros. Jonathan takes off his royal robe, he takes off his armor, he takes his sword, his bow, and his belt, and he hands them all to David.
Let's unpack the symbolism there. Because in the ancient world, you didn't just go to the mall and buy a new robe. That robe meant something.
The robe was his insignia of rank. It marked him as the prince. By giving it to David, he was effectively abdicating.
Wow.
He was saying, "You deserve this more than I do," and giving him his weapons. That is total vulnerability. He is literally disarming himself to arm his friend.
Which is just bizarre behavior for a politician.
Yeah.
Because David is technically his rival.
Exactly.
If David becomes popular, Jonathan loses the throne.
And that is exactly why it is a covenant and not a contract. A contract is about protecting your own rights. A covenant is about giving up your rights for the sake of the other person.
Yeah.
Jonathan was saying, "I am committed to your advancement, even if it costs me my own." He recognized that David was God's choice for the next king, and instead of fighting it, he funded it.
That is the very definition of a sacrificial friend. Because it's easy to be friends when you were just buying rounds at the bar. It is another thing entirely to hand over your robe, your status, your promotion, your spotlight to someone else.
The source material uses a really good sports analogy here, the fair weather fan.
Right.
It is super easy to cheer for a team like Barcelona or Real Madrid when they are winning championships. Everyone wears the jersey.
Yeah, everybody loves a winner.
It is easy to be David's friend when he is killing giants and the crowds are singing songs about him.
But the season changed. The winning streak ended.
It got dark really fast. King Saul, Jonathan's father, succumbs to this intense paranoia. He realizes David is a threat to his dynasty, so he wants David dead.
And this puts Jonathan in the most impossible position imaginable. It's the ultimate conflict of interest. His father, the king, versus his best friend.
Most people would bail. They would say, "Look, David, I love you, but blood is thicker than water, and I would really like to keep my head attached to my body." But Jonathan had made a covenant. So he warns David. He acts as a spy for him. He advocates for David in the royal court.
And it wasn't a low-risk advocacy.
No, not at all. There is a terrifying scene where Saul is so enraged by Jonathan's loyalty to David that Saul actually throws a spear at his own son.
Just throws a spear at him.
Jonathan literally became a target because of his friendship. He absorbed the violence that was meant for David.
That is physical protection.
Hmm.
But there is another layer the source highlights that I found even more moving. It is the scene in the wilderness of Ziph.
This is so crucial. David is on the run. He is living in a literal cave. He has gone from national hero to public enemy number one.
Yeah.
He is likely depressed, completely terrified, and doubting everything. He's probably thinking, was I crazy? Did I imagine God's calling? Why is this happening to me?
And Jonathan finds him.
Jonathan tracks him down deep into the woods. And he doesn't just bring him a sandwich. The text says he went to strengthen his hand in God.
What does that actually mean?
Ugh.
Strengthen his hand.
It means he reminded David of his true identity when David had completely lost sight of it. He told him, "You will be king. You are not a fugitive. You are the future of this nation, and I will be second to you." He basically spoke destiny back into his friend.
That is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have moments where we forget who we are. We get crushed by a failure or stress or a breakup.
Yes.
And we need someone external to come in and say, no, I know you. This isn't the end. Get back up.
That is the primary function of the covenant friend. They hold your identity safe for you when you drop it. Jonathan was saying, I see the king in you even while you are hiding in a cave.
Which leads us perfectly to the big cinematic illustration in the source material. It is the Spartacus moment.
Oh, yes. The 1960 film, Kirk Douglas. The chin.
The chin. It is iconic. But for the 3 people listening who haven't seen it, can you set the scene?
Gladly. The slave rebellion has been totally crushed by Rome.
Yeah.
The survivors are sitting in a field, defeated. The Roman commander, Crassus, rides up and offers them a deal. He says, I don't know which one of you is Spartacus. Turn him over, and the rest of you will not be crucified. You will be slaves, but you will live.
So, an easy choice for most people. Give up the leader, save your own skin. It's entirely logical.
Spartacus, being the noble hero, starts to stand up to surrender himself. He wants to save his men, but before he can fully rise, his friend Antoninus jumps up and shouts, I am Spartacus!
And then another guy stands up.
I am Spartacus! And another, and another. Soon, thousands of men are standing up, all claiming to be the condemned man.
It still gives me chills just thinking about it. It is such a pure, perfect visual of what we're talking about today.
It really is, because think about what they are actually saying. They aren't just lying to confuse the Romans. They
Wow.
know they aren't the actual Spartacus. They are saying, I will take the blow. If you want him, you have to take me too. We are one body.
It's that integrous concept again, but scaled up. The entire army became an integer, a whole.
Exactly. It is a chorus of unity against death. That is the essence of the covenant of brotherhood. It is standing up when the spear is thrown, whether that spear is a literal weapon or a divorce or a bankruptcy or a nasty rumor, and saying, I am with him. I am Spartacus.
Okay, so we have established the ideal. We've got the Roman soldier. We've got Jonathan giving up the throne. We've got the slave army facing crucifixion.
Yeah.
It is incredibly inspiring, but it's also pretty intimidating. I mean, most of us aren't fighting Philistines. We are fighting traffic and deadlines and maybe a midlife crisis.
Right. How do you actually apply I am Spartacus to life in the suburbs?
Exactly. But the source actually offers a blueprint, a way to practically build this kind of friendship today. And step 1 is arguably the hardest for men, specifically.
Step 1 is recognize the need. You have to stop lying to yourself. You have to admit that casual acquaintances just aren't enough. You have to admit that you are lonely.
That cuts straight against the grain.
Yeah.
We are taught to be completely self-sufficient. I am fine. I've got work. I've got Netflix. I'm good.
But remember the integress. You aren't whole if you are isolated. You are cracked. You have to feel the weight of the empty sack. You have to admit you need a Jonathan.
Okay, so what is step 2?
Step 2 is seek men of spirit. This goes right back to Jonathan and David. They didn't bond just because they were both soldiers. They bonded because they shared a faith vision.
Okay.
You need to look for friends who share your absolute deepest values, not just your hobbies.
That is a huge distinction. A golf buddy is great for 4 hours on a Saturday, but a golf buddy might not know what to do when your kid is in rehab. You need someone who speaks your soul language.
Precisely. And then step 3 is the action step. initiate covenant.
This is the awkward part.
It is very awkward because someone has to go first. Jonathan took off his robe. He made the first move.
Right.
In our modern world, that doesn't mean handing someone your jacket. It means being the first one to get vulnerable. It means inviting a guy to coffee and saying, hey, I am actually really struggling with my marriage right now, or I really value our friendship and I want to be intentional about it.
It is risky. They might look at you like you are crazy.
They really might, but they also might be starving for the exact same thing and just waiting for permission to say it. You have to be willing to be the Jonathan. You have to empower them first.
And finally, step 4.
Renew the covenant. Friendship isn't just a one-time transaction. David and Jonathan actually renewed their vows 3 different times as their circumstances changed.
Because life happens.
Exactly. People move, jobs change, kids are born. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep recommitting to the bond.
Now, I want to make sure we address the other half of the population here. Because the source material explicitly states this isn't just a guy thing.
Absolutely not. The language of brotherhood and manly men is just the specific framework of the book we are analyzing, but the principles are universal human needs.
Yeah.
The source notes that women, too, often settle for just shopping companions or surface-level chat.
The stereotype of the brunch crew. Fun, but not necessarily where you take your deepest pain.
Right. Fun, but not necessarily safe. The deep human need is for friends who will discuss spiritual struggles, who will talk about the real issues, and who will strengthen your hand when you are in your own wilderness.
There was a really poignant quote in the notes about a mother whose friends completely stopped writing to her when she got divorced.
That is the anti-Spartacus moment. That is the community sitting down and pointing at the victim to save themselves from the social stigma.
Yeah.
It is betrayal. A true friend runs toward the crisis, not away from it.
And the source points to the ultimate standard for this kind of love.
It points to Jesus. Whether you are religious or not, the text argues that the ethical standard he set is the pinnacle of this concept.
Right.
He said, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends.
That is the ultimate I am Spartacus.
It is. He literally took the blow. He gave up the robe, his divinity, his status to empower us. And he calls us friends. So the book argues that if we claim to follow that model, sacrificial friendship isn't just a nice idea, it is a command.
So let's land the plane here. We have covered a lot of history and sociology today, but this deep dive is really about the listener's life right now. Why does this matter for the guy driving to work or the woman listening at the gym?
It matters because potential is nurtured in community.
Yeah.
The reality is David would not have been King David without Jonathan.
Wow.
He would have been crushed by Saul or lost in despair in the wilderness. Jonathan shaped him, sharpened him, protected him, and encouraged him. You cannot reach your full potential, your kingship, if you will, without a Jonathan in your life.
And the flip side is also true. Someone out there needs you to be their Jonathan.
That is the core challenge. We so often sit around waiting for the perfect friend to show up and rescue us from loneliness. But the call to action here is to be that friend first, to initiate, to offer the armor, to strengthen someone else's hand.
I love the final challenge the source leaves us with. It is a question that is pretty uncomfortable, but completely necessary.
Are you willing to make your friend better than you? That is the Jonathan test. He knew David would be king, and he helped him get there anyway. He wasn't competing, he was elevating.
And the final question, are you Spartacus?
When the heat is on, when your friend is under fire, do you blend into the crowd or do you stand up and say, I am with him?
That is a lot to chew on, and I want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. If you become a Jonathan or a Spartacus, you aren't just changing your friend's life, you're changing the trajectory of their kids' lives and their kids' lives. These covenants scale up. One unbroken bond can literally alter the course of generations. So go find your band of brothers or sisters, and don't just look for a buddy, look for a covenant. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
A pleasure.
We will see you next time.